The approach of Sakka. Then Sakka, Lord of Gods, thought Panchasikha is exchanging pleasantries with the Buddha. So he addressed Panchasikha, "My dear Panchasikha, please bow to the Buddha for me," saying, "Sir, Sakka, Lord of Gods, with his ministers and retinue, bows with his head at your feet." "Yes, Lord," replied Panchasikha. He bowed to the Buddha and said, "Sir, Sakka, Lord of Gods, with his ministers and retinue, bows with his head at your feet." "So may Sakka with his ministers and retinue be happy, Panchasikha," said the Buddha, "for all want to be happy, whether gods, humans, demons, dragons, fairies, or any of the other diverse creatures there may be. For that is how the realized ones salute such illustrious spirits." And being saluted by the Buddha, Sakka entered the Indasala cave, bowed to the Buddha, and stood to one side. And the gods of the 33 did likewise, as did Panchasikha. And at that time the uneven places were evened out, the cramped places were opened up. The darkness vanished in the cave, and light appeared, as happens through the glory of the gods. Then the Buddha said to Sakka, "It's incredible and amazing that you, the Venerable Kosiya, who has so many duties and so much to do, should come here. For a long time I have wanted to come and see the Buddha, but I wasn't able, being prevented by my many duties and responsibilities for the gods of the 33. This one time, sir, the Buddha was staying near Savatthi in the frankincense tree hut. Then I went to Savatthi to see the Buddha. But at that time, the Buddha was sitting immersed in some kind of meditation. And a divine maiden of great King Visavana named Pujati was attending on the Buddha, standing there paying homage to him with joined palms. So I said to her, "Sister, please bow to the Buddha for me," saying, "Sir, Sakka, Lord of Gods, with his ministers and retinue, bows with his head at your feet." When I said this, she said to me, "It's the wrong time to see the Buddha, as he is in retreat." "Well then, sister, please convey my message when the Buddha emerges from that immersion." I hope that sister bowed to you. Do you remember what she said? She did bow, Lord of Gods, and I remember what she said. I also remember that it was the sound of your chariot wheels that pulled me out of that immersion. Sir, I have heard and learned this in the presence of the gods who were reborn in the host of the 33 before me. When a realized one arises in the world, perfected and fully awakened, the heavenly hosts swell, while the demon hosts dwindle, and I have seen this with my own eyes. The story of Gopika. Right here in Kapilavattu, there was a Sakyan lady named Gopika who had confidence in the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha, and had fulfilled her ethics. Losing her attachment to femininity, she developed masculinity. When her body broke up, after death, she was reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. In the company of the gods of the 33, she became one of my sons. There they knew him as the god Gopaka. Meanwhile, three others, mendicants who had led the spiritual life under the Buddha, were reborn in the inferior fairy realm. There they amused themselves, supplied and provided with the 5 kinds of sensual stimulation, and became my servants and attendants. At that, Gopaka scolded them. "Where on earth were you at, good sirs, when you heard the Buddha's teaching? For while I was still a woman, I had confidence in the Buddha, the teaching, and the Sangha, and had fulfilled my ethics. I lost my attachment to femininity and developed masculinity. When my body broke up after death, I was reborn in a good place, a heavenly realm. In the company of the gods of the 33, I became one of Sakka's sons. Here they know me as the god Gopaka. But you, having led the spiritual life under the Buddha, were reborn in the inferior fairy realm. When scolded by Gopaka, two of those gods in that very life gained mindfulness, leading to the host of Brahma's ministers. But one god remained attached to sensuality. I was a laywoman, disciple of the seer, and my name was Gopika. I was devoted to the Buddha and the teaching, and I faithfully served the Sangha. Because of the excellence of the Buddha's teaching, I am now a mighty, splendid son of Sakka, reborn among the 3 and 30, and here they know me as Gopaka. Then I saw some mendicants who I had seen before, dwelling in the host of fairies. When I used to be a human, they were disciples of Gautama. I served them with food and drink, and clasped their feet in my own home. Where on earth were they at when they learned the Buddha's teachings? For each must know for themselves the teaching, so well taught, realized by the seer. I was one who followed you, having heard the fine words of the noble ones. I am now a mighty, splendid son of Sakka, reborn among the 3 and 30. But you followed the best of men and led the supreme spiritual life. But still you are born in this lesser realm, a rebirth not befitting. It's a sorry sight I see, good sirs, fellow Buddhists in a lesser realm. Reborn in the host of fairies, you only wait upon the gods. Meanwhile, I dwelt in a house, but see my distinction now. Having been a woman, now I am a male god, blessed with heavenly sensual pleasures. Scolded by that disciple of Gautama, when they understood Gopaka, they were struck with urgency. Let us strive, let's try hard. We won't serve others anymore. Two of them roused up energy, recalling the Buddha's instructions. Right away, they became dispassionate, seeing the drawbacks in sensual pleasures. The fetters and bonds of sensual pleasures, the ties of the wicked one, so hard to break, they burst them like a bull elephant his ropes and passed right over the 33. The gods with Indra and Pajapati were all gathered in the hall of justice. As they sat there, they passed over them, the heroes desireless, practicing purity. Seeing them, Vasava was struck with urgency. The master of gods in the midst of the group said, these were born in the lesser fairy realm, but now they pass us by. Heeding the speech of one so moved, Gopaka addressed Vasava. There is a Buddha, a lord of men in the world, known as the Sakyan sage. He has mastered the senses. Those sons of his were bereft of mindfulness, but when scolded by me, they gained it back. Of the 3, there is one who remains dwelling in the host of fairies, but 2, recollecting the path to awakening, serene, spurn even the gods. The teachings explained in such a way that not a single disciple doubts it. We venerate the Buddha, the victor, Lord of men, who has crossed the flood and cut off doubt. They attained to distinction fitting the extent to which they understood the teaching here. 2 of them mastered the distinction of the host of Brahma's ministers. We have come here, dear sir, to realize this same teaching. If the Buddha would give me a chance, I would ask a question, dear sir. Then the Buddha thought, for a long time now, the spirit has led a pure life. Any question he asks me will be beneficial, not useless, and he will quickly understand any answer I give to his question. So the Buddha addressed Sakka in verse: Ask me your question, Vasava, whatever you want. I will solve each and every question you have.